The love of God, the compassion of God, comes through him without being able to see. That his heart and his experience of loving his son and welcoming his home has nothing to do with seeing his son. It's feeling, it's being that sense of God flowing through him. She says, this is one of the greatest masterpieces ever made. And as she's speaking this language of the heart, she looks at me afterward, and I just had tears coming down my face because of how alive she allowed that masterpiece to be by explaining it, by being one with it, by allowing her passion to show through, and by absolutely connecting with me in spirit and explaining it.
Her feelings were palpable, and they were palpable too as she described the Michelangelo crouching boy, not a work of a painting, but a sculpture that was created by the master Michelangelo. And I will tell you that it was a palpable feeling for me as she talked about how Michelangelo was not only a genius, but that he was in the possession of genius, possessed by genius, discovering the perfect body of a small boy in a brick of marble. Michelangelo brought that boy to life, and she, when she described him to me, described it in a way that brought it to life for me so that I could really actually feel the energy of this inanimate marble object that an artist brought to life.
How was it for you when she described the father of the prodigal son being blind?
And it was touching. It was very touching because I didn't know that about that story, and I didn't understand how well she understood what blindness is really all about, that it has nothing to do with the absence of vision, but it has something to do with the presence of spirit. And she is one of the few people I've ever met who could relate that kind of story in that kind of way to me that touched me very deeply. And it touched me deeply to see Heidi moved by that. Here's a woman who's describing a work of art in a way that inspires an understanding that wasn't there prior to her presence.
Well, and as we were learning about the experiences of these other people, being with David, and it brought so many people closer to us to try to understand how someone experiences a museum as a blind person and how someone experiences a country as a blind person. So we had a lot of people ask us about that as we went along, like how do you feel these new places in your life, and how do you expand yourself as you're experiencing new languages and new cultures?
Well, there's a language of negotiation socially in a foreign land where you're walking on a street that was created in 1167, made of cobblestones. And I will tell you, the one good thing about cobblestones is they don't wear out. The one bad thing about them is they're not easy to walk on when you can't see the next step you're about to take. But the texture of that experience made the whole encounter with these countries, these foreign lands, so special and so important and so ubiquitous.
So our knowing of the language of love, as we talk about here all the time, and celebrating diversity, was what continued to connect us with these countries. And these countries came alive because of the people that we met that were there. And as we would gather together tonight, at night with our 12 other people, we would talk about how we, through seeing the world through the lens of unity, were able to celebrate this diversity and this oneness that we were experiencing as we were traveling.
Our fellow travelers were our family members, and family is defined not just by a common name, but a set of common beliefs, uncommon beliefs when it comes to our unity movement, ways of giving us a sense of the reality that we encountered through the principles that were taught here. That's what united us at the dinner table, our experiences through that common lens. And it found a new way of inspiring us, I think, to be closer to one another, and also to feel a real sense of closeness to this community of humanity that was identified geographically as the Baltic Sea and the countries adjacent to it.
Mm-hmm. And that all these people have learned, even though they are very different, to live, they're very close to one another, well and respectfully toward one another. And so the last dimension of our talk was going to be this legacy. And not only what legacy that they brought to us by being very passionate about their country and the things that they had to teach us, but the legacy that we all have as spiritual beings having this human experience. You know, what do we stand for? What is your life about? What is it that you're passionate about, and how do you live in that state of passion?
One of the great demonstrations of legacy was when we went to the little country of Estonia, which was once, of course, part of the Soviet bloc of nations and under the rule of the Soviet Union, Mother Russia. And in Estonia, Heidi took me on a long walk down a narrow path to an amphitheater, a large amphitheater, which was the National Center for Folk Music and Creativity. And in this amphitheater, when we got to the bottom, there was the sense of something important that had happened there.
September 11th, 1988, 300,000 Estonians gathered at the folk song amphitheater. The Estonians at that time were under Russian rule, and they had been told that they were not able to sing their national anthem. It was against the law. So they gathered, as they did in this nonviolent way, and 300,000 strong did not raise their weapons, did not raise their fists, but raised their voices, and together sang their national anthem of Estonia. This started what was called the Singing Revolution. And for 4 years, people would gather and sing their national anthem. And 4 years later, in 1991, the Estonians regained their independence without any bloodshed. And I was reminded of how we stand together every Sunday and sing our peace song, and that in a nonviolent way, we are affirming the peace that we are. And this is what we stand for here at Unity. And so as we reflected on the Estonians and that extremely powerful singing revolution of standing for peace, our question was, what do you stand for? Do you stand for peace, or do you fall for the idea of war? Do you stand for love, or do you fall for the idea of conflict? Do you stand for wellness, or do you fall for the idea of illness? Do we stand for knowing the truth of who we are, for freedom, or do we fall to the bondage of the limitations that the ego can tell us?
The legacy I think that we learned about so much on this trip is that although our final destination was home, by leaving home and going on this journey, we were able to get a new perspective. And yet that new perspective is really available to us each and every day. We come to Unity on Sunday mornings to have a dose of spiritual fitness, to remind us of what we do stand for in this movement and the way we see the world, not being exclusive but inclusive, not being something that rejects but something that accepts. And we stand for those things that are principles of growth and freedom and creative expression. We now understand that it's really important not to just be awakened on Sunday mornings or be awakened on a journey across to the Baltic Sea, but to stay awake each and every day of our lives, to recognize that each and every one of us is a blessing, and that the blessings that we bring to our lives, to our families, to our work, to our creative expressiveness are the blessings that make the difference in this world, that define and, by the way we live, leave the legacy of each and every one of us. That's the lessons, and those are the blessings from the Baltic. It was a privilege to really be there, to be in the Unity family, and if we ever do it again, it would be a privilege to have any of you do that with us.
We're going to take some time now recognizing the idea of what do you stand for, and what is the blessing that I bring in who I am. So we're going to sing together the song, Our Thoughts Are Prayers, and allow ourselves to have time in the silence to reflect on that blessing, that unlimited good that is you.